We have a ton to cover here, so let's start right away. The Blood of Dawnwalker new trailer. We're still trying to wrap our heads around this one, but we're going to tell you that our interest in The Blood of Dawnwalker has seen quite a spike after its showcase at Summer Games Fest 2026. We see Cohen ordering a very morbid delivery, although it's one that he desperately needs. He's in bad shape, and the hapless man who brings his box to him can only watch in horror as he chomps down on a blood bag, his injuries healing quite quickly once he gets his fuel. His vampiric form is on full display here, although he's aged quite a bit. If you're wondering if all this takes place in the present day, it does. But doesn't this one take place way back in the past? Well, you're 2 for 1 here. But it seems that Cohen survives his effort to take on Princess, but that doesn't mean that the current ruler of Vale Sangora doesn't put up a good fight. And if the trailer's any indication, it's a battle for control of the region that doesn't end in the 30 days that the game claims, but moves to the shadows as the centuries go by. So how does all that come together? We're going to have to wait to find out more about that when this game drops in September. Mighty Cuphead Adventure announced, Cuphead 2 confirmed. Developer studio MDHR Entertainment has announced that it has begun working on a brand new Cuphead game that, much like the original, will also feature hand-drawn animation. While the studio hasn't revealed any details about when we might get our first look at the new Cuphead title, it has also confirmed that a smaller team has been working on a new game. This second title, dubbed Mighty Cuphead Adventure, got a gameplay reveal. The trailer confirmed that it will feature a retro aesthetic and offer the same kind of fast-paced 2D platforming gameplay that fans of Cuphead know and love. However, the presentation and gameplay will also see some twists along the way, thanks to its retro aesthetics. Much like Cuphead, Mighty Cuphead Adventure will also feature 2-player co-op. Neither of the 2 projects got any release windows. However, considering how polished Mighty Cuphead Adventure looks, it wouldn't be too surprising to see it come out either later this year or early in 2027. Now, as for Cuphead 2, the title is quite likely further away, and a late 2027 or even 2028 release window shouldn't surprise anyone. Last Harbor revealed. Developer TinyBuild revealed its brand new open-world multiplayer survival crafting game Last Harbor. The title was unveiled during Summer Game Fest 2026 with a trailer, which showcases various gameplay systems like fishing, the visual style, and even a bit of action. While the survival crafting genre often requires players to build up their home bases, Last Harbor introduces a twist in the formula by making the player's base a boat that they have to build, maintain, and explore the world with. The boat will serve as the main hub, where players will be able to craft, fish, cook, and upgrade gear, all while entering deeper into a deadly zombie wasteland to get their hands on more resources. Emergent cooperative gameplay was seemingly a major focus for TinyBuild, with the studio noting that players will absolutely need to make friends if they want to survive long in the harsh world of Last Harbor. PvP is also somewhat discouraged due to the tendency of guns to be quite loud, potentially attracting massive zombie hordes that neither player would be actually prepared for. Last Harbor is being developed for PC and is slated for launch in 2027. End of Abyss. End of Abyss arrives on October 1st, 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC via the Epic Game Store, bringing its grim sci-fi descent just in time for spooky season. Players step into the role of Cell, a young combat technician sent into a ruined underground facility, where abandoned machinery, buried secrets, and horrific creatures await. Built around tense combat and exploration, the game has players upgrading gear, scanning for hidden routes, and revisiting sealed-off areas as new paths slowly open up. Crossfire. Crossfire is a single-player, narrative-driven action game from a debut studio, coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. The game follows enemy operators Layla and Cross, who are forced into an uneasy alliance when a deadly threat leaves them with no choice but to work together. Built around survival, tension, and character-driven storytelling, Crossfire promises a fraught journey where trust may be just as dangerous as the enemy itself. Gen Atlas. Remember Gen Design, the new studio from eco-director Fumita Ueda, and their untitled project revealed years ago? Well, it finally has an official name, Gen Atlas, with a new trailer highlighting a mix of cinematics, gameplay, and development footage. Its signature way to fashion, it's not exactly clear what's going on, but the world is seemingly in ruins, with the giant remnants of robots remaining. The protagonists can pilot their heads and connect them to bodies, thus creating a mech to perform various functions, such as lifting giant pillars even if they're not at the helm. What would a mech game be without being able to fight other mechs, right? Well, we see a few teases of the same here, including the ability to punch their heads off. There are plenty of other gameplay scenarios, from traveling on land vehicles and firing at rapidly pursuing creatures, to shooting targets while on a mech's body, Shadow of the Colossus style. Again, the actual plot and your mission remain unknown, but it's very compelling and looks absolutely stunning, barring the few frame rate drops. Gen Atlas is coming to Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC via the Epic Game Store, since the latter is publishing and wishlists are currently available. Blood Message gets brand new trailer. NetEase Games and 24 Entertainment have revealed a new trailer for the narrative-focused single-player action-adventure game Blood Message. The title has been described as revolving around a character who sets off on a dangerous odyssey towards the east with his son, and along the way has to fight against impossible odds. Along with the narrative setup, the reveal for Blood Message also gives us a look at some of its fast-paced hack-and-slash gameplay, which seems to have a heavy emphasis on making sure weapons feel weighty. The title will also seemingly focus on large-scale battles, with players being thrown into the thick of it, having to take on hordes of enemy soldiers during battles. Along with standard sword fights, Blood Message will seemingly also allow you to, at least temporarily, play as other characters that have their own unique weapons and movesets. The action, as a whole, is also quite violent, with plenty of blood and dismemberment showcased throughout the action-packed trailer. NetEase has confirmed neither the release window nor the platforms for Blood Message. However, the company has confirmed that a playable demo of the title is available during Summer Game Fest Playdays, starting from tomorrow onwards. Alien Isolation 2 first trailer revealed. Well, guys, it's finally official. Alien Isolation 2 has finally been revealed at the 2026 leg of the Summer Games Fest, and the new trailer is a doozy. It's an unsettling walk through a dark forest, with a voice on your comms setting the stakes by telling your character that you've only got one chance to fix whatever has gone wrong in the time since the first game came out so long ago. Now, there aren't too many details in this short look at the game, but we can confirm that there's a xenomorph on the loose, in case you were getting lulled into a false sense of security for some reason. We can also confirm that it cuts quite the sinister figure, hunting you from the shadows before it leaps in for the kill. It looks as menacing as you would expect it to be, and taking it on is definitely not for the weak of heart. Now, in case you've forgotten, considering just how long it's been since the first game released, this one's set in the same universe as the films, with the first game being successful enough to fuel a long chain of rumors and speculation about this one's existence. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin announced. Platinum Games, known for its work on fast-paced action games, has announced that it now has been working on a new action game adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story, The Last Ronin. Interestingly, a game based on The Last Ronin had seemingly been in the works for a while, and was originally announced all the way back in 2023. The story here will presumably be based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin comic miniseries that was published between 2020 and 2022. The plot of the comics was set in a dark future timeline where New York City was successfully taken over by the Foot Clan. Only a single Ninja Turtle survived the battles, the eponymous Last Ronin, who has decided to avenge the death of his brothers by taking down the grandson of Shredder. The trailer released by Platinum Games didn't really reveal any details about whether its adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin will adapt the same story, or if it will tell a new one with the same setting and characters. Wolf Among Us 2 and Wolf Among Us Remastered revealed. In what's definitely among our picks for the more exciting announcements at the 2026 edition of Summer Games Fest, Wolf Among Us 2 is now official and is looking good. Bigsby's back, and he's looking into a series of killings that suggest a deadly beast that he must hunt even as it hunts him. He's joined by Fabletown, and they need to work fast if they're going to unravel the latest mystery that they're tasked with solving. There's a bit of workplace drama thrown in for them to navigate, and a tasty looking Tin Man for them to take on too. You know, the usual Telltale stuff. Now, for those of you who might have missed the original title, Telltale is bringing a remastered version of that one to current gen consoles. The reveals confirm rumors that the studio was planning to lift the curtain on its latest title, whilst giving new players a chance to replay the first one and see what the fuss was all about. That's coming in time for the holidays, and could be the perfect way to enjoy your downtime. Sword of Legends gameplay revealed. The Arbiter has his hands full against Kong Kong G, Master of Cantrips, who brings some spectacular moves to the battlefield. We're not kidding. The guy brings a literal fireworks display to one of his attacks that can prove deadly if you're not precise with your dodges. In fact, you're probably going to want to dodge through all of his attacks, be it a deadly barrage of red-hot spears that he casts at range, or a similarly heated blade that seems to cut the very air around it as he swipes and stabs at you. While it may not seem that the Arbiter is on the back foot for a while as he chips away at the boss's health with some quick and fluid attacks of his own, it turns out he is simply biding his time, waiting for the right moment to play an ace, his ability to summon souls to his side to defend him. The soul in question is a slightly talkative Minotaur who's able to withstand a lot of damage Kong G unleashes, while staggering him into oblivion with his own attacks. Hex revealed. Developer Dead Astronauts, a studio made up of industry veterans who have previously worked at Massive Entertainment and Epic Games, has unveiled its debut game with a trailer. Dubbed Hex, the game will be a first-person survival shooter with multiplayer elements, set in an alien-scarred wilderness that also happens to be engulfed by some strange mist. The core narrative of Hex revolves around the players trying to track down missing members of their science expedition, after surviving a helicopter crash and waking up in a strange new environment. The overarching story involves an anomaly showing up in the subarctic northern regions of the world, where players were sent to investigate. The primary goal of the players is to figure out what caused the anomaly to show up to begin with, while also trying to figure out why fellow expedition members went missing under mysterious circumstances. Hex can be played both solo as well as in multiplayer with up to 3 other players. The primary threats the players will have to deal with can range from alien creatures to strange machines that are coming out of the mist. Along with this, the environment will also play a crucial role here, and players will need to prepare themselves to be ready for just about anything. Hex doesn't yet have a release date and is currently only slated for release on PC through Steam and the Epic Games Store as an early access title. Stranger Than Heaven release date revealed. This one's a delight to talk about for sure. Stranger Than Heaven has made its presence felt at Summer Games Fest 2026, with a release date trailer that it has pinned down for a January 15th, 2027 release. That might be far away, sure, but the trailer did drop some interesting hints at what awaits Makoto in the rest of the cast as the story unfolds. We already knew that he flees San Francisco, but we now know that his hopes of better treatment in his homeland are dashed thanks to his mixed heritage. The word Gaijin immediately comes to mind. There are also hints at a quest for revenge, probably tied to the reason his mother was in America in the first place. This one's had us quite eager to see more of it ever since it was announced, thanks to a combat system that looks like it brings the best of Tekken to the table, and a bevy of other activities that could have you so steeped in being the showman of Makoto's dreams, it can be easy to forget about all the threats lurking about on the road to get there. Gundam Rogue Orbit announced. Bandai Namco has lifted the curtains on Gundam Rogue Orbit, an action-focused title that's bringing some serious Armored Core vibes to the table. It's a bleak world in this one, with humanity seemingly on the back foot against alien monstrosities that are more than capable of taking on the mech suits that humans must use to fend them off. Well, that's not accounting for the pilot. You've got some big shoes to fill, as the announcement trailer's narrative praises the pilot's fighting skills, and the trailer wastes no time at all in giving us evidence of their prowess. Your suit comes with some serious firepower at range, and some deadly weapons to take control of your enemies with if you're taking a more personal approach to combat. Thrown in some very cool crowd control moves into this mix, and honestly you've got yourself a recipe for some combat that could have you taking frequent breaks to give your poor hands a rest. It's fast, it's stylish, and the visuals do a great job of bringing it all to life. This one's slated for a 2027 release for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Guild Wars 3 announced. More than a decade after the release of Guild Wars 2, ArenaNet has now announced that it is working on a third entry in the MMORPG series. Appropriately titled Guild Wars 3, the game was unveiled with a trailer The trailer describes Guild Wars 3 as a modern evolution of the MMO, which would be a fairly bold claim to make in a market dominated by World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. Now, right off the bat, the trailer focused on one of Guild Wars 2's most beloved features, the mount system. It looks like Guild Wars 3 will also have a similar focus on mount collection, with plenty of unique creatures being available for players. Aside from the mount riding and a few clips of the player character being able to run up a mountain, no other gameplay details have actually been revealed. Whether ArenaNet will stick to the Guild Wars tradition of eschewing a monthly subscription fee in favor of allowing players to simply just buy the game once also remains to be seen. Guild Wars 2 has certainly seen quite a bit of success with this pricing strategy, thanks in no small part to the hefty post-launch support seen by the MMORPG through the release of several expansions. Guild Wars 3 is being developed for PC and PS5. 1666 Amsterdam announced. Developer Panache Digital Games has unveiled its new project, 1666 Amsterdam, with a trailer during Summer Game Fest 2026. The trailer gives us a look at the overall narrative setup for the game, as well as some quick glimpses at the horrific creatures that players will have to face. 1666 Amsterdam is a third-person action-adventure game that features a dark fantasy aesthetic, with players taking on some horrifying enemies as they make their way through this world. Its plot revolves around entities known as the Originals, having lived among the people of Amsterdam for several centuries, having accrued power and freedom over time. Players take on the role of Noah Brooklyn, a collector raised by the Xandaris for a single purpose, to drive back the malevolent forces that are doing the bidding of the Originals. If that story setup sounds enticing to you, which why wouldn't it, Panache Digital Games has also released a free playable prologue on PC through Steam and the Epic Games Store. The studio has noted that the narrative teaser tells its own story, while also introducing players to the game's world, its characters, and the core mystery that forms the very foundation of the plot here in 1666 Amsterdam. It is expected to take players roughly 30 minutes to finish. Palworld 1.0 release date. We predicted that Pocket Pair would announce a date for Palworld's 1.0 release, but we honestly didn't think it'd be so soon. It's available on July 10th with the first ever cinematic trailer. Alongside new locations in the form of floating islands, which are perfect for traversing with your flying mounts. Not that it's a serene journey, though, as a new serpent pal seemingly awaits in the clouds ready to take you down. If the actual battle in the clouds is anything like this trailer, then players are certainly in for something special. Beyond this, a few new pals are recognizable, including one that doubles up as a weapon. After vanquishing the serpent, they look out at the World Tree, which is where the finale and what seems to be the final boss awaits. What players can exactly expect remains to be seen, of course, but while it marks the end of the current story, Palworld will continue with more updates. In the meantime, Pocket Pair remains extremely quiet on what Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC players can look forward to in 1.0. Hot Wheels Infinite Rush announced. Developer Milestone has unveiled its new arcade-style racing game based on Mattel's Hot Wheels. Dubbed Hot Wheels Infinite Rush, the title was announced with a trailer during Summer Game Fest 2026, featuring a minute and a half of footage that was captured entirely in-engine. Hot Wheels Infinite Rush will seemingly feature an open world that players can drive around in. Rather than just focusing on photorealism, however, the title seemingly leans into the goofier aspects of Hot Wheels in terms of its city design and the various vehicles that can be seen around the world. The trailer caps things off by giving us a look at what appears to be a real race, featuring several different drivers on a course that has seemingly been made out of Hot Wheels track sets. The trailer's description indicates that players will have plenty of freedom in where they drive, with one of the off-road locations mentioned including a beach. How much variety the title will feature in its open world still remains to be seen, however. Now, as for multiplayer, Hot Wheels Infinite Rush will feature full crossplay between all platforms except for the Nintendo Switch 2, and local multiplayer for up to 4 players through split screen. The title will feature more than 150 vehicles at launch. Hot Wheels Infinite Rush is coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch 2 on September 24th. Clutch gets its official reveal trailer. A couple of days after giving us our first look at its narrative-driven driving game Clutch, Maverick Games has now officially released the announcement trailer for all to see. The trailer gives us a look at some of the early narrative beats of Clutch, as well as its emphasis on the dangers of motorsport racing. Now, the story of Clutch will revolve around a pair of siblings who have been described as racing prodigies. While both of them want to compete in the prestigious R1K racing series, they also end up having to deal with the darker underbelly of the sport, interacting with groups like the Midnight Collective and even outright criminals. Along with its main narrative, Clutch is also slated to feature a level of detail and accuracy never before seen in in-game car models, according to Maverick Games. This is thanks to its use of custom version of Unreal Engine 5, which has been thoroughly modified to allow for extreme details, like every exterior curve, every fleck of paint, every interior stitch, every groove of tire wear. Along with the racing and story, Clutch is also slated to feature an open world that players can drive around in, and will likely also reward creative exploration with things like more customization parts and potentially even performance upgrades. Clutch doesn't yet have a release date aside from a spring 2027 window. It is being developed for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Mafia: The Old Country Man of Honor expansion announced. It's always good to see a familiar face. In the gaming world, it's often a delight to see a younger version of that face, as it usually means that an insightful look into the character's origin is coming. Well, that's exactly what Mafia: The Old Country's Man of Honor story expansion seems poised to do, as we get a glimpse of a younger Don Salieri who seems on the cusp of a great opportunity that comes with its own risks, but apparently worth a great reward. As for what that could be, well, your guess is as good as ours, of course, but we think it's safe to say that there is bound to be a connection to the original title to keep the nostalgia strong with this one, just as it was in the base game. Now, in case you've forgotten, we really liked what The Old Country had to offer, and even felt that it was a great step for the franchise to go back to where the tales that have been making us spellbound over the years originally began. We see no reason for the new story expansion to be any different when it drops on August 14th, 2026 on all of the game's available platforms. Stellar Blade Blood Rain announced. Shift Up has released a new trailer to show off what the studio has been working on all this time for the sequel to Stellar Blade. Titled Stellar Blade Blood Rain, the new game will seemingly tap into more of the cyberpunk aesthetic that we've previously seen in other games. However, Shift Up hasn't announced any release date for the title yet, noting that it is still early in development. The trailer starts off by showing us the busy streets of a city, with a train pulling up at a crowded station. We then get more looks at the various establishments throughout the city, before eventually getting our first look at the protagonist. The trailer then shifts into what looks like gameplay, with the protagonist walking through the cloud as she tails her targets. Eventually, however, these targets start mutating into horrendous creatures, and our hero has to get ready to take them all down. Virtua Fighter Crossroads officially announced. Following its sudden leak on social media, Virtua Fighter Crossroads was announced at Summer Game Fest. Releasing in 2027, this is the previously untitled new Virtua Fighter project developed by RGG Studio, and sporting some extremely slick visuals. It takes place in a brand new city, where fighters of all kinds have gathered for competition. Of course, they also have their own issues. One has seemingly had problems with the Chinese Mafia and is on the run, leading to restaurant battles, for example. However, it's not long before he's saved by an older Pai Chan, a veteran fighter from previous titles. Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance out in 2027. The first expansion coming to Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance has been revealed. It takes place among rocky islands in the clouds above the Forbidden Lands, which somehow existed without anyone knowing. But there's a disturbance of sorts that invites the hunters to investigate. Don't worry, it's not even trying to hide the fact that an elder dragon is responsible. A few new monsters are showcased, but you'll also have to deal with some returning foes, including Kushala Daora. At the end of the iconic Lao Shanlong is also seemingly teased, his first appearance as a target since Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. Some new gameplay elements were also showcased, including a new gauntlet that you can rev up, Red Queen style, to augment your attacks. There's also a new gadget for pelting monsters from afar with bullets. How these will impact the current wound system remains to be seen, but neither is the Clutch Claw and are thus automatically better as a result. Final Fantasy VII Revelation revealed. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, alongside its official title, Final Fantasy VII Revelation, has been finally revealed. The first trailer is quite action-packed, showcasing many different features. Players can traverse the world map by directly controlling the airship, and you can dive off Tears of the Kingdom style to reach the ground at any moment. Other notable sights include the return of jobs, with new outfits for Cloud and Tifa, alongside the skills for Vincent and Cid. Valentine's transformation looks pretty great, but Sid is no slouch either with his staff strikes. Overall, the game promises its most expansive open world yet, as players explore the outskirts of Midgar, the city of Wutai, and much more. Even if it's only been 2 years since the release of the acclaimed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, out now on Xbox Series X and S and Switch 2 by the way, the wait for the climactic finale has felt unbearable. Final Fantasy VII Revelation also marks the remake trilogy's simultaneous launch on Nintendo Switch 2, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. It will be out in spring 2027. Resident Evil Veronica revealed. Code Veronica is being remade. Titled Resident Evil Veronica, it's out in 2027, with a new trailer showcasing Claire Redfield entering an apartment in Paris that belongs to her brother, who's absent. She's subsequently detained by a strange individual who may very well be Hunk, before we see some quick snatches of the different environments. And don't worry, the classic zombies of yore return in all their flesh-hungry glory. Resident Evil Code Veronica has always held a special place in fans' hearts. It followed Claire Redfield after she escaped from Raccoon City to find Chris. It would lead to her capture by Umbrella and escape from Rockford Island, dealing with all kinds of horrors. Along the way, she learned more about the Ashcroft family, their role in the company's founding, and more. But more importantly, it was the first time in the series to feature fully rendered 3D environments. There's also Steve Burnside, and really, the less said about him, the better. With Albert Wesker and the HCF allegedly featuring more prominently, and apparently no-cut content, Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake could reach the same heights as its predecessors. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.